Stop looking at the radar screen. Look at the shelf behind it. The screen shows you the threat. Imagine 200 contacts climbing over the Turkish coast. Fast movers, slow movers, decoys, penetrators. A swarm designed not to win the engagement, but to exhaust the defender. The shelf shows you the response. Rows of premium missiles, many costing around or above 1 million euros, each representing a single shot against a target that costs a fraction of that to manufacture. One side is buying some of the most expensive interceptors ever built. The other is building a production line designed to generate threats faster than Greece can afford to destroy them. Greece is attempting to solve this through a €3 billion Achilles shield program nested inside a much larger, decade-long modernization effort, a multi-layer air defense architecture integrating Israeli, American, and European systems into a single protective network stretching from the Evros River to Crete. Turkey is not answering only with a symmetrical shield. It is answering with factories, with production lines, with an industrial ecosystem that exports drones to fund the next generation, then uses those exports to reduce unit costs, attract new customers, and expand the very capacity that would sustain a wartime surge. The question is not which side has the better technology. The question is, which side has designed its procurement around the right arithmetic? One is buying platforms that cost 80 million euros apiece. The other is building a system that treats aircraft as consumables, replaceable, expendable, produced faster than the defender can reload. This is the magazine depth war. Imagine the screen inside a Greek air defense command center. A fast-moving aircraft appears at high altitude. Below it, 3 slower contacts approach an island radar. Farther south, a cruise missile begins following the coastline. Greece can see all 5. But seeing them is not the same as knowing which one deserves the most expensive missile. This is the problem Greece's modernization program is designed to solve, and it has not tried to solve it by simply buying fighter jets. It has tried to build a nervous system. The 24 Rafales delivered between 2022 and 2025 are not operating as independent aircraft. They are nodes in a network that includes the Hellenic Navy's Belhara FDI frigates, the National Ground Radar Network, the Seafire radar aboard those frigates, airborne sensors, and Link 16 tactical data sharing architecture. When a Rafale's RBE-2AESA radar detects a target, that track can be distributed across connected platforms through the wider tactical network. The FDI contributes its own picture. Ground-based and airborne sensors add theirs. The result is a single synthetic view, persistent, redundant, and harder to degrade because no single node holds the whole picture together. From 2028, Greece begins taking delivery of 20 F-35As, with the initial aircraft supporting the training pipeline before the fleet becomes operational from Greek territory. Block 4 configuration, the software baseline that integrates the jet into a wider allied sensor network rather than isolating it inside its own flight. A Greek F-35 will be capable of operating inside a much wider allied sensor picture, receiving selected data from Greek and compatible allied platforms without needing to expose itself continuously through its own radar. It will not hunt alone. It will hunt inside information gathered by platforms it never needs to see. The Meteor Beyond Visual Range missile is the system's fist. It outranges anything in Turkey's current inventory. Its ramjet propulsion allows it to retain energy deep into the engagement, making escape considerably harder for a target once the missile enters its terminal phase. This architecture is formidable. It is also extraordinarily expensive to operate. A Rafale can carry a substantial air-to-air load, but every sortie still draws from a finite national missile inventory. An F-35 preserves stealth by carrying its weapons internally, which makes magazine discipline even more important. In the opening hour of a real conflict, Greek fighters would commit dozens of these weapons. Against a high-value crewed aircraft, using a premium interceptor is economically easier to justify. Against drones, the arithmetic begins to fracture. A TB2 may cost less than the premium interceptor used to destroy it. A Kizilelma would be more expensive than a TB2, but still designed to place no pilot at risk and to be more replaceable than a crewed fighter. On paper, the exchange may still be justifiable, but only if the missile hits, only if the target is not a decoy, only if the drone is not flying as part of a formation of 20 identical aircraft, each demanding its own radar track, its own missile, its own slice of a kill chain that can only process so many engagements at once. Turkey does not have to destroy Greece's nervous system. It only has to overload it until the network begins answering relatively cheap questions with million-euro-class answers. If this channel helps you understand conflicts that mainstream media cannot explain in this depth, please consider subscribing to Money Trail. Turkey's most dangerous drone is not the TB2, the Akıncı, or the Kızılelma. It is the next one leaving the factory. The Bayraktar TB2 is the most visible symbol of Turkey's drone revolution, combat-proven in Syria, Libya, and Nagorno-Karabakh, but it is no longer the most threatening. It flies slow. It cannot defend itself against fighters. Its operational ceiling is modest. The Akıncı shifted the calculation, a high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aircraft that carries heavy precision-guided weapons and has demonstrated air-to-air missile testing. It stays airborne for 24 hours. It can carry heavy precision weapons and small air-launched missiles, allowing it to remain outside the innermost defensive zone while creating additional threats for Greek commanders. But focusing on individual platforms misses the larger point. Turkey's advantage is the industrial ecosystem that produces them. Exports finance production, production reduces unit costs. Lower costs attract more customers fund larger production lines create wartime surge capacity. Bayraktar has delivered more than 110 Akıncıs with a target of 120 by the end of 2026. TB2 production runs at approximately 250 airframes per year across multiple assembly lines. And the next generation, the Kızılelma, the Anka 3, and emerging loitering and kamikaze systems will emerge from the same factories, funded partly by export contracts already signed. This is the cycle that matters. Not the inventory, but the production rate. Not the platform count, but the replenishment rate. Turkey could absorb unmanned losses more easily and replenish them far faster than Greece could replace a lost Rafale, an F35, or a large quantity of imported premium interceptors. The asymmetry is not about technology, it is about industrial tempo. The threat composition compounds the problem. A future mixed attack could combine drones launched from Western Turkish bases, shipborne TB3s, standoff weapons carried by Akıncıs, decoys, cruise missiles, and smaller loitering munitions. The exact scale is uncertain. The purpose would be to generate more simultaneous decisions than the defender can comfortably make. The radar shows multiple inbound tracks. Some are real threats, some are decoys, some are loitering munitions designed to force the defender to expend interceptors. Some are the actual strike package, masked by the chaos of the decoy wave. The commander has seconds to decide which tracks to engage and which to let pass, knowing that every missile fired at a decoy is a missile that will not be available when the real attack arrives 30 minutes later. The Aegean environment magnifies the difficulty. Civilian aircraft, ferries, islands, mountains, commercial shipping, electronic noise from a dozen sources. A drone flying low among the islands benefits from the exact terrain masking that has challenged air defense commanders since radar was invented, and the defender cannot fire unless the track is confirmed. Factories do not win simply by producing more aircraft. They win when the defender is forced to repeatedly answer cheap questions with expensive answers. When a drone crosses into Greek airspace, a sequence begins. Defense planners call it the kill chain. In the Aegean, it is better understood as a ladder, and every rung costs more than the last. The first rung is avoidance and deception, dispersion, camouflage, hardened shelters, decoys, and emission control. These measures do not destroy the incoming threat. They make the attack less effective. The second rung is detection and disruption, radar, passive sensors, jamming, and spoofing. These systems are expensive to build but relatively inexpensive to reuse during each engagement. The third rung is kinetic but comparatively cheap. Guns, short-range infrared missiles, systems designed to engage threats at close range, where the cost per kill is measured in thousands of euros, not millions. The fourth rung is where the money burns: premium interceptors, meteors, AMRAAMs, Patriots, the weapons designed to destroy threats at maximum range before they become immediate dangers. These are the systems that make the network lethal. They are also the systems that will empty Greece's magazines fastest. Every step upward costs Greece more money and removes a rarer weapon from the shelf. Turkey's objective is to force Athens upward as quickly as possible. The swarm does not need to defeat the F-35. It needs to bypass the cheap rungs and force Greece onto the expensive ones, repeatedly, relentlessly, until the shelf is bare. Electronic warfare sits at the boundary between the second and third rungs and may matter most. Turkey's drones rely on satellite and line-of-sight data links. A Kuzulelma operating autonomously, pre-programmed flight path, onboard targeting, terminal guidance is harder to jam than one reliant on a ground controller. But autonomy has limits. Autonomous target identification in a cluttered environment, distinguishing a Greek frigate from a commercial vessel, a military radar from a civilian television transmitter, remains imperfect. Jamming the data link forces the drone into autonomous mode. Autonomous mode increases the error rate. The error rate means drones striking the wrong targets or failing to strike at all. The question is whether Greece has invested enough in the lower rungs. If Athens spends heavily on jammers, decoys, mobile guns, cheap interceptors, hardened shelters, and domestic repair capacity, it can force Turkey's mass into an unfavorable exchange. It can make the lower rungs thick enough that the upper rungs are preserved for genuine threats, not wasted on decoys. But if Greece has invested only in prestigious platforms and premium interceptors, it may possess an extraordinary first line and an insufficient second line. The real Greek vulnerability is not a shortage we can prove from public inventory numbers. It is a procurement philosophy that could buy too many exquisite weapons and too few inexpensive ways to protect them. The shelf behind the radar screen is not empty. But whether it contains the right mix of lower-rung tools and upper-rung weapons is a question no public budget document answers. And the shelf was not built to be restocked under fire. This is the magazine depth war. From the opening hour, 3 clocks start running. The first measures how quickly Greece can repair its bases, runways cratered, radar arrays targeted, command nodes degraded. Every hour a base is offline, sortie rates drop, and the defensive picture shrinks. The second clock measures how quickly Greece's premium magazines decline. Missile by missile, engagement by engagement, the shelf empties. The rate of consumption is determined by the enemy's willingness to absorb losses, and Turkey has signaled through its sustained investment in swarm doctrine that it is prepared to absorb unmanned losses at a scale no crewed air force could sustain. The third clock measures how long Washington takes to make a political decision. Alexandroupoli is the resupply artery. Suda Bay is the logistics hub. But even if Washington decided immediately to release additional missiles, physical delivery would still require locating available stocks, preparing them for transport, moving them to Greece, distributing them to the correct bases, and loading them onto combat aircraft. The flight itself is the easy part. The political and logistical chain around it is what consumes time. During those days, the Greek Air Force fights with what it has on the racks on day one. There is no express delivery for AMRAAMs. The Khan engine deal adds a layer of strategic ambiguity. The United States is simultaneously delivering Greece the F-35 program while moving ahead with the sale of F-110 engines for Turkey's Can fighter. It is resupplying the Greek shield while powering the Turkish sword. In a crisis, does Washington prioritize resupply to Athens, or does it hedge, preserving relationships with both allies by slowing deliveries to both institutions? The historical record is not reassuring. During the 1974 Cyprus crisis, the United States imposed an arms embargo on Turkey that lasted 3 years, while simultaneously limiting military assistance to Greece. The instinct to remain above the conflict runs deep in the American foreign policy establishment. If Washington hesitates, even for 72 hours, the third clock becomes the decisive one. The shelf empties before the resupply arrives. Every hour of delay shifts the attrition equation further in Ankara's favor. At hour 72, the winner may not be the side that has destroyed more aircraft. It may be the side whose command network, runways, launchers, and factories are still functioning. Turkey's factories will be running. The question is whether Greece's launchers will still have something to load onto the rails. 4 days, 5 days, or any other precise number for magazine depletion is speculative. What is not speculative is the direction of the equation. Turkey may be able to replace unmanned losses much faster than Greece can replenish imported premium interceptors or replace crewed combat aircraft. The outcome depends on whether Greece can keep the exchange economical, and whether the lower rungs of the kill ladder are thick enough to preserve the upper ones for the threats that genuinely demand them. The radar sees the war coming. The network decides what must be destroyed. But the warehouse decides how long a country can continue fighting. And in the next Aegean crisis, sovereignty may depend on what is still left on the shelf. The F-35 is the most capable fighter ever built. The Kızılelma is the most ambitious unmanned combat aircraft Turkey has ever produced. Neither will determine the outcome. The outcome will be determined by factors that receive almost no public attention. The depth and distribution of Greece's national missile stocks, the resilience of its electronic warfare network, the procurement philosophy that decides whether Athens buys more premium interceptors or more lower-rung defenses, and the political decision in Washington that either arrives in time or doesn't. Turkey is betting that mass can overwhelm precision. Greece is betting that precision can neutralize mass. Both bets are rational. Neither is proven. The margin at hour 72 is so thin that a single variable determines the outcome, what is still on the shelf when the third clock runs out. This is the magazine depth war. Today's sponsor is you. This channel produces documentaries that no television network is making. Deep, evidence-driven analysis of the strategic forces reshaping the Eastern Mediterranean. If that matters to you, consider joining as a channel member. Your support directly funds the research, the production, and the independence that makes this work possible. And if you want to understand the broader architecture of this standoff, the energy corridors, the diplomatic treaties, the systems being integrated into the region's defense networks, the next video on your screen picks up exactly where this one left off.